Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of June 2014. And as always, we're going to start off with what you guys have already seen. I did a whole video on this before. This is a, if you're not aware, but you really should go watch that video. This is a custom Star Wars theme painted Game Boy Advance by a website called 8-Bit Evolution. And not only that, but it's also had a custom, more modern screen put in it that's backlit, and it's just beautiful. It absolutely looks astonishing. I highly recommend picking one of these up. Yeah, man, that's really all I can say about it if you haven't seen the video. Yeah, go there, go to 8bitevolution.com. If you pick one up or pick anything else up on their website, if you use my name as a coupon code, which I'll display here, you get 10% off your order, so you're welcome. Secondly, I picked up an EverDrive for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Again, did a whole video on this. It's basically a flash card for the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and you can use it on that, the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, you can basically play every game ever for those systems on one card. I picked this up at retrotowers.co.uk, and much like 8-Bit Evolution, I worked out a little deal with them. If you use my name as a coupon code, you'll get 5% off your order. In this case, though, my name, I'll display it here. It's all one word, and with 8-Bit Evolution, it's my name, space, and then the letter K. So go ahead and pick stuff up and save yourself some money. You guys are welcome. But enough of stuff you guys have already seen. Let's talk about some stuff you haven't seen. Now, I've told you guys before, and I hope you guys are listening, Xbox stuff, original Xbox stuff, is really cheap right now. It has been for the last couple of years. It may stay cheap for the next couple of years, but at some point it's going to become expensive. So now's the time to strike. Now I'm going to warn you in advance, a lot of the games I picked up this month I just have not had time to play, so you're not going to get much of a review out of me in most cases, but I will try my best. In the case of Demon's Stone, I have not played this. It just looked interesting, and of course it's by Atari, even if it's, you know, not the real Atari anymore, but you know what I'm saying. It just caught my eye. I basically judged a book by its cover, and the cover looked good. I picked up this game called Cold Fear. I had never heard of this one. And when I was in the store, I was just in a mood for like horror games, and this one just, it looked interesting, and then the description was interesting, so I was like, alright, what the hell? Because again, it was like $2. I mean, Xbox games are so cheap right now. So you can do a blind buy, and even if the game sucks, you're like, well, whatever, it was worth $2. This one was a little bit more. This was like $5, but Call of Cthulhu, also a horror game. And Bethesda made it, which is really what caught my eye in general. That's really why I totally pulled the trigger, is because of Bethesda, because I figure, they're usually pretty good. They probably didn't make a piece of shit, so we'll see. But I honestly don't know. But this looks like a game that we might play on my other channel, Game Society Pimps. This just seems like it might be right up our alley. So look out for that, possibly, if it ever happens. I got Star Wars Republic Commando for the original Xbox. This one I actually played a lot more. This is... If you like Star Wars, and you like, oh, I don't know, Halo, you'd probably really love this. It's a very interesting kind of mesh. I've never seen artwork like this in any other Star Wars game. It has a very interesting look. The screenshots do not do it justice. It just looks very different than anything else in Star Wars lore. Yeah, that's really all I can say about it. It's basically Star Wars meets Halo. I'm by no means an FPS junkie like a lot of people are, so it could suck by comparison of what a lot of you are used to, but I thought it was pretty fun. Yeah, but it's kind of a lost IP. I don't remember ever hearing about another Star Wars Republic Commando, and you probably never will, because LucasArts has gone the way of the dodo, and that's another reason I picked it up, is because I don't think EA is going to do good things with the Star Wars franchise. So I want to get a bunch of Star Wars games, because I obviously love Star Wars. I mean, who doesn't? So I want to have those around to be able to play later down the line, because there's a lot of ones I never got to play, and I just don't know if EA is going to do much good with them. Not totally related to this, I want to give a shout out to my city of Chicago, where I live, for landing the George Lucas Museum. If you're not aware, George Lucas is going to basically spend about $1 billion building a giant museum here in Chicago, actually not too far from where I live, that's just going to house like a crap ton of Star Wars stuff, from authentic props from the movies and all this like paintings and artwork. It's going to be really pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's supposed to happen in 2018. And my apologies to anybody who lives in San Francisco. I know you guys were really swinging for the fences trying to land it. And I hope you guys understand that we here in Chicago are happy to have it, and we are sorry for your loss. But thank you. For the Xbox 360, I picked up Assassin's Creed 2, 3, and Revelations. Now, I've never actually played any of the Assassin's Creed games, which I know is like sacrilege to a lot of people. But, yeah, I intend to. I have the first one, and a lot of people say I should have just skipped it and just go right to the second one, but I'm more of a completionist. The reason I picked these up was basically because GameFly was doing a huge sale. And GameFly, if you're not aware, is one of the best places to get current and previous gen games, just like, in this case, 8th gen or 7th gen. Obviously, the Xbox 360 stuff is 7th gen. GameFly usually has very good deals every once in a while, and you can get stuff for pretty cheap. And then on top of that, the only thing that's really ever used about them is the discs. They tend to keep the cases just in a warehouse somewhere, including all the, you know, the vouchers that if there's any DLC or if it's like a Nintendo game, the Club Nintendo points are still in there. It's basically like buying a new game, except unfortunately, you know, Ubisoft or whoever doesn't see any money out of it. But yeah, and they even resurface the discs before they send them out to you. So most of the time, you're going to get a pretty solid product. I've never really had any complaints. So yeah, that's my little pitch for GameFly, and I'm looking forward to playing the Assassin's Creed games at some point. I got Amazing Island for the GameCube. This is the reason I got this is kind of a holdover from another era. It's when I was younger, in the 6th generation, as a devout Sega fanatic. After the Dreamcast went bust, I didn't really know where to put my loyalties, so I always kind of said, like, okay, I'm going to just get anything that Sega makes. I love Sega. Yay, Sega. This was just one that I never got. I just never ended up getting it. So I got it recently. It obviously didn't help Sega or Nintendo in any way, shape, or form, but yeah, that was really the only reason I got it. I also know that at some point it was supposed to be a Dreamcast game, but unfortunately it had to get canceled because the system went down. But yeah, Amazing Island for the GameCube. Now, this one is pretty interesting. This is probably maybe the best actual game pickup of the month. I'm not totally sure. I'll leave that up to you, but yeah, I'm happy to pick this up. This is a Haunting Ground for the PS2. It's basically a Resident Evil clone, but not in a bad way. I mean, it was made by Capcom. If you play it, it's almost like the exact team, even maybe the lead director of the Resident Evil franchise, for all I know, actually worked on this game. I have no idea. It plays exactly the same way. On my other channel, Game Society Pimps, we actually did 2 videos, which go ahead and check it out. You can see some gameplay of it, and it's a comedy channel, so you probably get a few laughs out of it. Of this game. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing this, like, for recreation and not for work purposes. This was just really cool to pick up. I got this relatively cheap for what it's worth. It usually falls between like the 40 to 60, maybe even the 80 range. I got this for 20. I got this at a used bookstore. Now, here's a big secret for all of you who want to buy and collect things. Used bookstores are one of the best places to get games. And I don't mean like a Barnes and Nobles. There's a lot of bookstores, maybe it's like mom and pop stores, sometimes chains that have like a few stores in a region. A lot of them are they kind of operate like Goodwill. You know, they take anything. You bring in stuff and they'll buy it, but generally their focus is books. But that people sell other things. They sell knickknacks, and of course that would include video games. So the employees don't know what the things are worth. The people who are selling there, if you're selling video games to a bookstore, you don't know what your stuff is worth. But that benefits you as the customer because they're going to have a lot of stuff that nobody ever comes in to buy, because nobody really goes into a bookstore thinking, all right, I'm going to buy some video games, except me. I do that all the time. But I'm informing you so you can be one of those people. So generally, you get pretty decent prices on stuff that you can't believe they have in stock. So that's a little tip from me to you. Keep an eye out for bookstores. You can find some cool stuff. For the Wii U, I got Transformers Prime. Now, I got this for a couple of reasons. One, I am a huge Transformers fan, or at least pre-Michael Bay Transformers fan. I have not seen the 4th movie. I know that just came out. At the time I make this video, I have not seen it. I will see it at some point, I'm sure, even though the other 3 were train wrecks. But yeah, I've always loved the Transformers franchise, so I'll generally pick up any of their games, even if I know they're going to suck. This is also basically a Wii U exclusive. It was on the DS, the 3DS, and the Wii, but I don't care about handhelds, and I certainly don't care about the Wii version. So essentially it was a Wii U exclusive. So it's another excuse to pick up an exclusive game for a franchise, a series I love. And it was really cheap. Amazon was selling this for like $7. I think it's up to like 14 at the time I make this video, but yeah, it was pretty reasonable. As for the gameplay, it's very similar to Transformers Fall of Cybertron or War for Cybertron, or that new one, you know, Rise of the Dark, or what is it called? Like Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark or something like that, which unfortunately is getting critically panned. It's very similar to that, but more like kid-friendly. So, yeah, you take it with a grain of salt, but for like $7, I'm not complaining. That'll be enough amusement out of that. And, of course, Peter Cullen voices Optimus, which is always worth hearing. Now, moving on. As a lot of you probably know, I am on a quest still, perhaps an eternal quest. What's the story, like Sisyphus, the guy who pushed the rock up the hill? That's kind of how I feel, because I'm trying to get all of these Sega Saturn games, or at least the North American ones. Very difficult task, but I'm chipping away at it. First up here, I got Shinobi Legends, or Legion, sorry. I could be wrong, but I think this is actually the last Shinobi game on a Sega console. I'm pretty sure, yes, no, there wasn't one for the Dreamcast, and I don't know if there were any other Shinobi games on the Saturn, at least maybe in Japan or something. But yeah, I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And no, we're not talking about that PS2 game. That was for the PS2, that is not a Sega console. So yeah, this might actually be the last Shinobi game on a Sega console. I got Mystaria, The Realms of Lore. This is interesting to me for one real reason, and that's this is the only game in North America for the Saturn that was released twice with two different names. The other one was called Blazing Heroes. It's the exact same game, but basically what happened was one of them, and I don't know which, came out, and then they had a trademark issue with it. And what trademarks are, again, I'll remind you from another video, is when you don't really own the rights to a name. And it says right there, trademark. So this might be the second version, I'm not sure. But basically they had a trademark issue, and they had to recall one version of the game and re-release it with a different name. Like I said, I don't remember which one was which, but yeah, suffice it to say, they're both relatively uncommon, but I'm having a hard time figuring out which one was first and which one is rarer. So, whatever. But it made me happy to find that out, because it meant I didn't have to buy Blazing Heroes, which is pretty cool to save $40, because that's basically what that game costs. So, yay, don't have to get that. Doom. Now, I think we all know what Doom is, so I can't really give you any new information there. I'm curious how this port plays. I know a lot of you probably know more about Doom than I do, and I'm sure a lot of you can know exactly which ports of it were good and which one were bad. Yes, I'm sure the PC version was the best. As far as console versions, I always hear people talk about the 32X, the Super Nintendo, and the Jaguar versions, but I never hear anybody mention the Saturn or PS1 versions, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. Do you guys know what it is? Someone must, so let me know. But yeah, Doom. Good to have Doom. Clockwork Knight. Now, this is more my type of game. Granted, I haven't played it for very long. It's basically a 2D side-scroller with 3D elements. And the thing about that I like is that this is really what a lot of people don't know this or even remember this. The Saturn was intended to always work that way. It was intended to be a 2D console with 3D elements and be like the ultimate 2D console, which is why a lot of the fighting games on it are so amazing. It was never intended to be a 3D game console. It was forced to be because it had to compete with the PS1 and with the N64. So that's why a lot of Saturn games look kind of sloppy, because they had to be. It just was not designed to work that way. So if you want a game that plays kind of like the way the Saturn was supposed to work, this is probably one to get. It's not uncommon. It's one of the more common Saturn games, which is nice. I see it all the time online. And fortunately, it had a sequel that is very, very similar. However, the sequel here is nowhere near as common, probably because it was a late Saturn game. And yeah, that makes it harder to find. But it is an exclusive to the Saturn, as is, I believe, this one. I can't imagine Clockwork Knight was on anything else. And then next up we have Blazing Dragons. This is a point-and-click adventure game. I don't really like those. It's kind of like Snatcher or The Adventures of Willy Beamish, games like that. They're fine. I'm sure they've got I know there's a lot of people who really like those games. It's just never been my cup of tea. The thing I find interesting about this one, though, is it's actually voiced by Cheech Marin of Cheech and Chong fame. So that's pretty cool. Next up is NBA Jam Extreme. featuring the now defunct Seattle Supersonics. To people in Seattle, I'm sorry you lost your team, and to people in Oklahoma City, you shouldn't have stolen their team. I know that was not your fault. But anyway, no, I'm actually, you guys probably, some of you probably know this, I'm actually a giant NBA fan. Specifically the Chicago Bulls. I'm a huge Chicago Bulls fan. But I've never really been into any of the video games. Except for the NBA Jam stuff, I always thought was kind of fun. The 2K stuff, I think, is very well made. I respect it, but I've never been like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to play that. Because when it comes to basketball, I've never been like the kind of person who's like, oh, I wish I was in control of the basketball team. I wish I was on the basketball team. You know, none of that. I just like to have fun with it, and that's really what NBA Jam kind of was always about. So that's cool to have. And on an unrelated note to any potential New York Knicks fans, I'm sorry if we steal Carmelo Anthony away from you, but I really hope he ends up in a Bulls jersey. And then to everybody else, what the hell is sport ball? I don't know. It's sport ball. I got Impact Racing. Now, I'm not really much of a racing fan either. I like, certain racing games, like Mario Kart is obviously up there, all those. The Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is also really kick-ass. But as far as like car racing, I've never really been into it. I just don't really admire realistic racing games. It's never anything I've wanted to do. Now, granted, this has like lasers and explosions, so it's probably much more like Burnout. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just never been a thing I was too interested in. It doesn't look particularly appealing either, but, I pushed the button, the car went. So if you'll, it's about it. That's my review. I pushed the button, the car went. And finally, 3D baseball. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, like, why the hell would you end this on a baseball game? I wouldn't normally end things on a sports game, but this is somewhat of an exception. Because if you're a Saturn collector, you're probably already like, wow, you found 3D baseball. This is a really rare game. Really rare. I had a hard time even finding proof that this game existed. Yeah, it definitely came out in Japan. The Japanese version is a lot more common, but for some reason the American version is just really hard to find. I found one guy on eBay selling it for like $150, something like that, and that's when I knew it actually was real. And at one point I found a guy who just threw it up for like $20, and I'll buy it now. I just bought it immediately. I didn't even think, I didn't even read the description. It was a stupid thing to do, but fortunately it worked out. There was nothing wrong with it. But yeah, I was really happy to get my hands on that, because this is seriously, it was just a seriously rare game. So very happy to have that. And that's it, guys. That's all my pickups for the month of June 2014. I would like, of course, to thank Retro Towers and 8-Bit Evolution for their for these things, because they're really awesome. And I highly recommend that you check them out. Go to their websites and use those coupon codes. Save yourself some money if you want to pick anything up. And that's it as always. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later.